The ground trembles before the eye can see it. A rumble swells beneath the soil, deep and ancient, a voice of the earth itself. Imagine standing barefoot on a world not yet written by human hands, where mountains rise raw from fire, and rivers carve new scars into stone. Now ask yourself, what would you do if the ground you trusted suddenly betrayed you? How do fragile beings survive when the very floor beneath their feet splits apart? 8.4 million years ago, there were no seismographs, no sirens, no reinforced concrete. Only instinct, only bodies, only fear. And yet, life endured. But how? And why do we, with all our modern technology, still feel just as helpless when the earth begins to shake? The story begins on a plain dotted with thorny shrubs and fractured rock. The air is heavy, stilled, as if holding its breath. A small group of early hominins crouches near a watering hole, their movements cautious senses tuned to the landscape. Their survival depends not on weapons or machines, but on silence observation and the bond that holds them together. One bends to drink. Another scans the ridge, sniffing the dry wind. Children cling to their mother's fur, wide-eyed, restless. The matriarch stands apart, upright, her gaze fixed on the horizon as though she hears something the others do not. And then it comes. The first shudder, subtle, yet unmistakable. Pebbles skip across the ground. Water ripples, distorting the reflection of the sky. The matriarch growls low in her throat, signaling danger, and the group tenses. The tremor swells into a roar. The earth heaves like a wounded beast, splitting the air with the crack of breaking stone. Dust explodes upward as fissures tear across the ground. Shrubs are swallowed whole. The watering hole sloshes violently, spilling mud and water over the trembling ground. The hominins scatter arms, flailing eyes wide with terror. One child stumbles. A mother lunges, dragging the infant close as the ground yawns open, just steps away. The matriarch slams her fists against the earth, rallying the others to move, to climb, to flee from the collapsing basin. Survival here is not about understanding tectonics, it is about instinct. And instinct screams higher ground now. They scramble up the jagged ridge, clawing at stone, pulling one another upward. The earth bucks beneath them, throwing some to their knees. A young male grips a vine, anchoring himself as rocks tumble past. His chest heaves, teeth, bared eyes wild. In the chaos, they do not know if every member survives. They cannot count, cannot pause. They only move bodies driven by the will to endure. At last, the tremors subside. Silence returns, broken only by the crackle of dust settling on rock. The survivors huddle on the ridge chests, heaving eyes, wide ears still ringing with the roar of the planet. Below them, the basin lies transformed, split by a gaping scar, water draining into the abyss, trees toppled like straw. What was once their lifeline is now a chasm of death. Yet in that moment, they are alive. And in their survival lies a truth that reaches across time. The earth will always remind us of our fragility. Even now, with skyscrapers of steel and sensors buried deep in the soil, when the ground shifts, we too are reduced to instinct. We duck, we cling, we pray. Technology may warn us, but it cannot save us from the primal fear that lived in those ancient eyes. Night falls, and the ridge becomes both sanctuary and prison. The survivors crouch together, muscles trembling, their breaths still shallow from the terror of the quake. Dust clings to their fur, turning them ghostly under the faint silver light of the moon. The air carries a new scent, sulfur sharp and metallic rising from the cracks below. The earth has spoken, and its voice lingers. Hunger presses against their ribs, yet no one dares descend to the basin where danger still steams. The matriarch grips a broken branch, tapping it against the stone, a rhythm of reassurance, a reminder that they endure because they stay together. Far below, the wounded plain glows faintly where fire seeps through fissures. The quake has unearthed the furnace beneath the crust. The hominins do not understand magma pressure or tectonic plates, yet they know instinctively that red light means death. They watch it in silence, their amber eyes flickering with the glow. Fear becomes ritual. They press their foreheads to the stone. They beat their chests. They wait. The earth is no longer ground. It is a living beast, unpredictable and merciless. By morning, silence returns, but silence does not mean safety. The world is altered. Paths once familiar are gone, swallowed by rock slides and chasms. Water has vanished into deep fractures, leaving cracked mud in place of the life-giving pool. Hunger gnaws more fiercely now. The group must move or perish. The matriarch leads, stepping carefully down a slope into unknown territory. Each step is deliberate. Each handhold a prayer to the stone that betrayed them the night before. The journey reveals new landscapes carved by the quake boulders, split in half, canyons deep as tombs, roots of ancient trees exposed like bones. The group moves slowly, sniffing the air, pausing at every sound. Predators stalk weakness, and the quake has left them weary, distracted, divided. A shadow crosses the ridge above. A large cat, its eyes glinting, its paws silent. The hominins freeze. The quake has not only shaken the earth, but also disturbed the balance of predator and prey. Hunger drives all creatures, and tonight, hunger is universal. The matriarch lifts her branch, strikes the stone again. The sharp crack echoes. The cat hesitates. Another male joins, slamming rocks together until sparks spit into the air. Fire. Small, weak, barely more than embers, but fire nonetheless. The quake may have stolen their water, but in its violence it revealed another tool, stone upon stone light. From friction. The cat retreats into the shadows, unwilling to risk flame. The group gathers closer, embers glowing between them. For the first time since the trembling began, they taste power over their fear. Centuries later, humans will measure quakes with scales and sensors, record their strength with numbers and names. But here, survival is not measured in magnitude, it is measured in moments. The moment a child is saved from the fissure. The moment a branch becomes both weapon and comfort. The moment sparks rise, defying the dark. These moments are not science, they are myth. And myths are how survival becomes memory. Days pass, and the land does not return to what it was. The hominins wander across fractured plains, tracing new routes where rivers once flowed. Their footprints imprint on fresh dust, fragile marks against the vast reshaping of the earth. Each day they search for water, for roots to chew, for fruit clinging stubbornly to bent branches. Each night, they huddle around embers, guarding them as though they were newborns. Fire becomes more than heat. It becomes memory of terror, turned into strength. The quake had stripped them of safety, but it had also given them a weapon against darkness. Yet hunger grows heavier. One morning, the matriarch signals the group forward toward a distant rise where green still glimmers against the barren scars. Hope. They climb with trembling limbs, children clinging to the backs of mothers, males scanning the horizon for movement. Every sound matters: the crack of a stone, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of an unseen beast. They know the earth can betray them again at any moment. But they also know standing still means death. To survive is to move. At the crest, a miracle, a spring trickles between rocks, clear water spilling into a shallow pool. The group descends quickly, splashing their faces, gulping desperately. Relief floods their bodies. Laughter, raw and guttural, breaks the silence. For a moment, they forget the quake, the fear, the hunger. Life has not ended. It has shifted. And in that shift lies the possibility of renewal. They drink, they wash, they collapse in the mud, eyes closed, bodies heavy with exhaustion. The matriarch does not rest. She scans the horizon, always watching, always listening. Her body may tremble, but her gaze is unbroken. Survival demands vigilance. But the earth is not finished with them. By dusk, the ground shivers once more, not as violent as before, but enough to ripple water, to rattle bones, to remind them that stability is an illusion. Panic flickers, children cry out. One male claws at the mud, desperate to flee. The matriarch rises, slams her branch against the ground, calls them to stillness. This time, they do not scatter. This time, they hold to one another, breathing through the tremor, enduring as a single body. The quake fades. The pool remains. The group exhales. They have learned something no machine could teach. Fear can be mastered if endured together. Far away in the future, modern cities will rise on fault lines, skyscrapers swaying like reeds when the ground trembles. Engineers will design foundations that bend, but do not break alarms that sound. Before the shaking begins, satellites that trace the scars of tectonic shifts. Yet when walls crack and glass rains down, humans today feel the same raw fear as those ancient survivors. The difference lies not in the shaking, but in how we prepare. Where technology now offers warnings, they had only instinct. Where we build steel, they clung to one another. Both paths tell the same truth. Survival is not conquest, it is adaptation.